Have a nice life being a broke loser. The words didn't just cut, they cauterized. Sarah didn't even look back as she slammed the door of our $4,000 a month apartment, leaving nothing behind but the scent of her expensive Chanel perfume and the rhythmic clink 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 of her $8,000 engagement ring rolling across the hardwood floor. 10 minutes ago, I had been the man she couldn't live without. Now, I was garbage she was taking to the curb. I stood in the center of the living room, my hair intentionally disheveled, wearing a thrift store hoodie I'd bought specifically for this performance. My voice was still ringing with the fake tremors of the confession I had just given her. I lost it all, Sarah. The startup collapsed. I'm $150,000 in debt. We have to cancel the $60,000 wedding. We're moving to a studio in the slums. I expected tears. I expected her to grab my hands and tell me we'd survive on ramen and hope. Instead, I got a masterclass in human depravity. The moment the word debt left my lips, her face transformed. The warmth evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharpened disgust that made her look like a stranger. You expect me to live in a shoebox? She had screamed, her voice reaching a pitch that made my ears ring. I am a Sarah Jenkins. I don't struggle. I didn't spend 3 years with a software geek to end up in public housing. She had packed her 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases in record time, suitcases I had paid for by working 70-hour weeks. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask how we would pay the rent. She just stripped the jewelry off her body as if it were contaminated by my poverty and walked out. I walked over to the ring lying near the baseboard. I picked it up, feeling the cold weight of the platinum. Then, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I didn't call a bankruptcy lawyer. I didn't call my mother. I opened my banking app. Balance, $12,042,611.84. I looked at the closed door, then at the screen, and I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh, it was the sound of a man realizing he had just paid $8,000 to find out his soulmate was a vulture. The test was over. Sarah had failed. And now, the real game was beginning. Exactly 7 days prior, my life had been a gray blur of lines of code and wedding spreadsheets. Sarah wanted a wall of white peonies. Sarah wanted a custom Vera Wang. Sarah wanted a honeymoon in a private villa in Bora Bora that cost more than my annual salary. I was drowning, not in debt, but in the relentless pursuit of her approval. On a Tuesday evening, fueled by exhaustion and a strange whim, I stopped at a greasy gas station for a Red Bull. And a Powerball ticket, I muttered to the clerk. Quick pick. I forgot about it until the next morning. While Sarah was complaining that my 5-year-old Honda was embarrassing her in front of her country club friends, I checked the numbers on my phone. 5, 12, 22, 38, 41. Powerball, 19. My heart didn't race, it stopped. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and checked again. And again. By the time I walked out, I was a multimillionaire. I should have run to her. I should have swept her up and told her all her dreams were coming true. But as I opened my mouth to speak, I saw her looking at a magazine, pointing at a $20,000 watch. If you actually cared about your career, Mark, you'd buy this. Successful men look successful. You just look tired. The words froze in my throat. A dark, cynical curiosity took root in my mind. If the money disappeared, would the love stay? I decided right then to give her exactly what she feared most, a man with nothing. I spent the next 6 days playing the part of a failing businessman. I stayed late at the office to avoid her questions while I met with wealth managers and tax attorneys. I moved the $12 million into a private trust. I prepared the script. I wanted to know if Sarah loved Mark Thorne, or if she just loved the lifestyle Mark Thorne provided. Now, standing in my empty apartment, I had my answer. She didn't want the man. She wanted the ATM. For the next 6 months, I became a ghost. I didn't try to win her back. I didn't send I miss you texts. I moved into a sleek, minimalist apartment in a part of the city Sarah never visited. I quit my job as a software engineer and became a full-time investor of my own capital. I changed everything. I hired a personal trainer and shed the office weight that had slowed me down. I traded my glasses for contacts. I spent hours reading, learning the language of the ultra-wealthy, not the flashy look-at-me wealth Sarah craved, but the quiet, terrifying power of true liquidity. I knew exactly where she was. Sarah had moved in with a friend for a few weeks before landing a job at Vanguard Luxury Estates. It was the city's premier high-end real estate firm. She was an executive receptionist, a gatekeeper for the billionaires. She was back in her element, flirting with developers and hoping to land a big fish to replace the loser she had dumped. I watched her social media from a burner account. She looked happy. She was posting photos in expensive bars with captions like knowing your worth means leaving the dead weight behind. Every time I read those words, I smiled. I was no longer dead weight. I was a tidal wave. I spent $250,000 on a custom-tailored wardrobe, suits that didn't have logos but were recognizable to anyone who knew the cost of Vicuna wool. I purchased a matte black Porsche 911 Turbo S. I didn't need it, but for what I had planned, the visual was necessary. The final piece of the puzzle was the evergreen penthouse. It was a $4.5 million glass and steel masterpiece listed by Vanguard. It had been sitting on the market for 3 months. It was the crown jewel of their portfolio. I called Marcus Sterling, the owner of Vanguard, directly. I used a pseudonym and a corporate name, Thorne Acquisitions. I told him I wanted to buy the penthouse. Cash. No contingencies. I'll be there Tuesday at 2 p.m. to sign the papers, I told him. And Mr. Sterling? I'd like the full experience. Have your best staff ready. The sun was glinting off the glass facade of the Vanguard office as I pulled the Porsche to the curb. I let the engine purr for a long moment, watching through the tinted window as the people inside noticed the car. I saw her. Sarah was sitting behind a marble desk, her hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a dress that probably cost her a month's salary. She was smiling at a man in a cheap suit, likely trying to gauge his net worth. I stepped out of the car. The valet rushed forward, but I ignored him. I straightened my jacket and pushed open the heavy glass doors. The scent of expensive candles hit me, the scent of the life Sarah thought she had escaped. As I approached the desk, Sarah didn't even look up. "Welcome to Vanguard. Do you have an appointment, or?" She stopped. Her eyes traveled from my handmade Italian shoes up to my face. The recognition hit her like a physical blow. Her mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. "Mark?" she whispered, her voice cracking. What are you doing here? You can't park that car there. Is that a rental? Mark, you need to leave. This isn't a place for people in your situation." I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I looked at her with the blank expression of a man looking at a bug on a windshield. "Is Marcus in?" I asked. "Mark, stop it," she hissed, leaning over the desk, her eyes darting around to see if her coworkers were watching. "I heard you went crazy after the breakup. Did you steal that suit? I'm serious, I'll call security. You're embarrassing me." At that moment, Marcus Sterling walked out of his office, his hand extended. "Mr. Thorne. A pleasure to finally meet you. I see you've met our receptionist." Sarah's face went from pale to a ghostly, translucent white. "Mr. Thorne? Marcus, there's a mistake. This is Mark. He's bankrupt. He's a loser." Marcus looked at her with pure confusion, then back at me. I reached into my inner pocket and pulled out a cashier's check for $4,500,000. I didn't give it to Marcus. I laid it flat on the marble desk, directly in front of Sarah's shaking hands. "I'm not bankrupt, Sarah," I said, my voice echoing through the silent lobby. "I won $12 million 3 days before our wedding. I just wanted to see if you loved me for me. Turns out, you didn't even love me for the ring, you just loved the potential of my bank account." I leaned in closer, so only she could hear the final blow. "By the way, thanks for throwing the ring back. It paid for the taxes on the Porsche." I spent the next hour in Marcus's office, sipping a 30-year-old scotch while I signed the deeds to the penthouse. Through the glass wall, I could see Sarah. She wasn't at her desk anymore. She was in the break room, her head in her hands, her coworkers whispering and pointing at her. She had been the queen of the office, boasting about her high standards. Now, she was the girl who had literally thrown away a $12 million fortune because she couldn't handle a studio apartment for a week. When the paperwork was done, I walked out. Sarah was waiting by the door, her eyes red and puffy. "Mark," she sobbed, reaching for my arm. "Please. I was just scared. I didn't know what I was saying. I was under so much stress with the wedding. I still love you. We can start over. Please." I stepped back, avoiding her touch as if it were a disease. "I'm moving into the penthouse tonight, Sarah. It has a beautiful view of the city. You'll be able to see it from your desk every single day." I walked out, the door chiming behind me. That night, as I sat on my private terrace overlooking the skyline, my phone began to vibrate. Missed call, Sarah, 11:15 p.m. Missed call, Sarah, 11:18 p.m. Missed call, Sarah, 11:22 p.m. Then came the texts. A frantic stream of apologies, "I love yous," and "remember our first date?" Followed by more sobbing voicemails. 27 calls in total. I took a sip of my drink, enjoying the cool night air. I thought about the 60-hour weeks I used to work just to keep her happy. I thought about the cheap anniversary gifts she used to mock. I opened my contact list, found her name, and clicked block. The silence that followed was the most expensive thing I had ever bought. And it was worth every single cent. Did I go too far, or did Sarah get exactly what she deserved? Drop a like and subscribe if you love instant karma.